Hi, this is Political News in 5, and today is February 19th, 2023. Now, I'm starting with APC versus APC because the Naira redesign policy has splintered the party even more. Now, what's in it for those of us who are watching or Nigerians? It's just one more way of assessing how to vote and how the APC has taken governance. Now, the APC members who are most vocal want you to isolate what's going on from MFLA and the central bank, or to blame Buhari and his faceless cabal. But no, all of APC is going to have to bear responsibility for this particular policy, as they've been part of all the other difficult policies that Buhari has led for the last 7.5 years. And so they do not get to pick and choose and say, on this, we're on this side. These are men who needed Buhari to win elections in 2015 and 2019. They made use of that fact. They cannot disassociate themselves from him now. And no, this is not about Nigerians and care for the public. They lie. This is about fear for themselves and their political future. Second, Buhari, with his Thursday broadcast where he said we could continue using the 200 Naira old notes, it was a masterstroke because it showed him as a listening person, which is not something that we associate with him typically. And then also, it was clear that he was listening, he was sort of empathetic with the majority of Nigerians who live below the poverty line, because the 200 Naira note is the note that they probably use the most. Presumably, he and MFLA have information that shows that in terms of the Naira notes that are being returned, the 1,500 are the ones that are still out there in the hands of those who allegedly have stockpiled them to compromise the elections. Now, 7 other governors have joined the lawsuit against the federal government, including one PDP governor, Tambuwal of Sokoto, probably because he's the chair of the governors forum. Whatever the case, their motive is suspect. It's not clear how the Supreme Court is going to rule on the 22nd of February, but we can be sure of one thing: this is self-serving, because there are many opportunities to bring lawsuits against the federal government for the abuse of ways and means by the same MFLA and Buhari, or the rising subsidy cost at 400 billion a month. None of these things concern them, yet now they're here frothing at the mouth, making treasonous remarks, and it's clear that they would rather see elections not hold, they'd rather truncate democracy than lose their grip on power. Speaking of which, the second thing I'd like to talk about is, will elections be postponed? Now, we have a history of postponing elections in Nigeria. Elections were postponed in 2015 for 6 weeks from February 14th to March 28th. But at that time, we got 1 week's notice that this was going to happen. In 2019, we woke up on the day of elections, February 16th, to find out that elections had been postponed for a week. Now, what are we going to find out? We're only 6 days away. It would be a shame if elections are postponed, especially since Yakubu, the INEC chair, has been sounding very confident about plans. But whatever the case, what's worth doing is worth doing well. If the elections are postponed, they will still hold and we'll still get on with our lives. That said, there are many who are concerned that INEC's logistics and ability to deploy ad hoc staff, likewise candidates' ability to mobilize their agents to polling units, will be affected by the lack of cash. Let's see what happens. What's also clear is that a large group of Nigerians will be affected by insecurity, not entirely related to the Naira redesign, but just the insecurity that's been ravaging their communities for years. One example is Zamfara, where INEC has designated over 600 polling units as unreachable, meaning that the almost 300,000 registered voters in those polling units have been asked to go into other towns to vote. And you have to think, how are they going to get there? Who's going to pay for it when there's a fuel scarcity and a Naira scarcity? And when you put that into the context that we have 3.2 million internally displaced people in Nigeria, you can get a sense of how many people are going to be unable to vote. And then when you think that they might have to do this twice again on March 11th, it brings into focus SBM's poll that found out that when it comes to interest in the gubernatorial elections and state House of Assembly elections, the interest is at 34% and 14% respectively. That's really low. So what can we expect? This is another reason why we should stop this charade of splitting up our elections. They need to happen all on one day going forward. Finally, I want to talk about the ABCs of voting. Aside from having your PVC, it's very important to know your polling unit. INEC has been sending messages to people, registered voters, to tell them if their polling unit has changed. There's a link in the message which you follow. It takes less than 3 minutes and you get the details for your new polling unit. Don't wait to the last minute to find this out. Do it now. Take a screenshot and save it so that you'll know where to vote. Also, it's very important to know how the bimodal voter accreditation system works. That's BVAS. One of the first things it will do is pull up your information. It needs either your last name or the last 6 digits of your voter identification number, or by scanning the QR code on your PVC. Next is the accreditation process, which is either by facial recognition or thumbprint. And make sure that your fingers are not sweaty, dirty, wet. And of course, if you used eyelashes when you did your registration, make sure you have the same eyelashes on. And if you didn't have any, same thing, same advice. You do not want to be turned away from voting. This is one of the most important elections that we're having in Nigeria since we returned to civil rule, not democracy, in 1999. Wishing everyone all the best in the 6 days' time, fingers crossed, and it will be well. Thank you, and have a good week ahead. Bye.